now you have two. Now you have two. I did believe there's something wrong with that. It doesn't make sense to me.
Not everybody reports it when they get the flu. You know, it has to be pretty bad before
Well, I did go to the doctor because I wasn't feeling well when I took the COVID test, and they said, no, you don't have it. I said, could it be the flu? And you know what she told me? Oh, nobody's getting the flu anymore. And she just kind of dismissed me, and I was like, okay. So I think they're just making their money from the COVID test, and they don't even want to quantify it as the flu. They probably make more money from COVID. They have somebody who says they have COVID, so they don't want anything to do with it because I didn't have it. So who knows?
Who knows?
It'd be nice to see it maybe go away.
I don't know if it'll ever go away.
What COVID? It's going to be like the flu. It's never going to go away.
But it might not be.
But I think if that's the thing. I think that if we continue our vaccination process, then it's not going to be a killer the way that it is now.
I guess we'll find out. When do we find out if the Rangers gave us a super spreader? Or did we already found that out?
Already would have found that out.
Yeah.
It's been weeks.
Yeah. So if you can have a large gathering like that and not have a lot of cases, that's a really good sign.
I think the more they get outdoors, I think it's okay. You know, if you're outside.
And if you're not within talking distance.
Yeah, but what is that? What distance is it?
Right.
Is it 6 feet? Is it 3 feet? Now
At
they say
least
3
3
feet.
feet.
Well, it was 6.
At the Cowboys,
I know, but it's at least 3.
You gotta be 6, you gotta be 6. Well, no, really, you gotta be 3. What is it?
Right,
That's the problem I
59.
have with this whole thing.
wishy-washy.
Is the authority
What's
states
this do? It's new science. New science is that
just say
way.
you
Then
don't
stop
know
speculating.
in science.
Yeah, stop
Stop
speculating.
speculating. Don't.
We think that, and that's what Poach is anyway, however he says his name. That's what he said all along. We believe that. So far, the science
No, he
has
did
shown
not.
us that.
No, he didn't.
You didn't say that in the
He
beginning.
didn't say that at the beginning. He most certainly did not. You go back and look at the tape. Watch it. I've watched it. Right? It's documented. He came out and said, you should not wear masks. Masks do nothing. It's recorded. It's not something made up.
That's scary.
And then 2 weeks later, he said, you gotta wear a mask. And then 6 months later, he said, oh, you can wear 2 masks. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
You're the highest paid government employee. He's the highest paid government employee on the payroll. More than the President of the United States. $427,000 a year.
Which is half of what he's making in private practice.
His choice. His choice.
If he wants to serve, yes, it's his choice.
His choice, right? But come on, you can't, I don't know. You're talking about things with 330 million people and you're leaving it up to somebody that's an unelected official.
You think an elected official does any better?
I think they need to advise, consent, right?
Yeah, look at Trump.
I just don't trust him. He's just messed up.
But the elected officials, we put them there. It was our decision, your decision, my decision. We put them there. So then we have to accept what the people we put there said. That was our choice. I don't remember Dr. Fauci ever being on a ballot anywhere. He wasn't. So they can advise, they can consent, but at the end of the day, it's up to the people that we wanted to be.
Right. Maybe we need a fresh perspective.
I don't
New
know.
doctor. One that we believe.
I don't know. I know you think it's a lot of right-wing conspiracy, but there's a book.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's several books.
No, there's a book that you should read. You're not going to agree with it, but it's sourced. It's not hyperbole. It's 100% sourced. And it's called The Fauciism Doctrine.
What?
The Fauciism Doctrine. It's an easy read. It's like 250 pages. And it just goes... And it's more about... It's not about Fauci per se. It's more about, as a society, what have we learned during this last year of how, as a society, we should interact with our government, how we should believe or not believe. And it was really interesting that how decisions were made during this whole process. I just found it interesting to
What
read.
was the most interesting part?
For me, the most interesting part was how they made decisions for 330 million people with a disease that generally impacted the elderly. Okay? They were the highest at risk, yet they didn't make the changes to protect the highest at risk. at the beginning. They did not do what they should have done. The government, the Trump administration did not do what they should have done.
That's absolutely right.
At the very beginning,
That's absolutely right.
to protect the most vulnerable without, without putting everybody in that same boat. And
It wasn't fair.
I don't know if it was fair. It was, if they would have done a good job
Oh, thank you.
truly protecting the most vulnerable, then would they have had to shut down all the businesses, shut down all the sporting events, shut down all the hotels and airlines and things like
Ruin
that?
people's lives.
If they would have done more enhanced mitigation for the people that are most at risk.
Well, I think nursing home folks should have been isolated immediately.
Absolutely.
And I'm proud of the ownership of our group.
Yeah, they
They have been great. I'm proud of them.
They should have done that everywhere.
And that should have been a government edict, not a private edict. It should have been a government edict, and it didn't.
Yep.
What about, did they talk about the nursing home scandal with what's his name?
Well, that's part of it. We had different states doing different things, right? And so there wasn't kind of this national agenda to protect people. And part of me, as a libertarian, believes that get the federal government out of power. Okay? Let the state government. However,
There are certain things that are national
when it
priorities.
comes to war, a national pandemic, yeah, you got to step in, okay? But you got to step in the right way. And I don't think they stepped in the right way.
I think they made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the mistakes continue. Right? The mistakes continue to happen.
And it's just, things are also evolving. There's experience now with some of the vaccines that we didn't have before. We had test results, but we didn't have your result or my result. So they were making decisions based on a 2,500 person test group. And that's what they have to do. I mean, that's the way it works.
They knew pretty early on who was most at risk and who wasn't. They knew very early on who was at risk. They knew very early on that kids under 18,
Not much.
almost at zero risk. It can be as close to zero as possible. They also knew that kids at that age were not transmitters, per se.
They knew that.
They knew all of this very soon. Yet,
Because they tried to protect the adults.
yet they just made the wrong, I just think they made the wrong decision. I get it that they didn't know what they were
Right.
doing.
Can't expect everybody to know everything.
Didn't-
But what about the masks? Did they say that no one's admitting or giving the evidence that they actually were?
So they did talk about that in the book. They called it masquerade. And they talk about how masks have proven to be unsuccessful. They also talk about how 80% of all COVID has been transmitted within the home, not within business, not within schools, not on airplanes, not on cruise ships, not in hotels. It's all science, right? It's all sourced. And that's why I wanted to read the book, right? Because it was source stuff, not just somebody on CNN or somebody on Fox or whatever. It was
So
just-
what's the source?
You can go read all the sourcing. It was like the National Institute of Health or Johns Hopkins or different, medical,
Nobody in politics.
different doctors.
No, I have the John. I think the John Hopkins.
Yeah, I mean, it's all there, right? So, it's just fascinating to me at this point why decisions are being made, continue to be made, even though we have a year's worth of data. Yet decisions are still being made that counteract the science.
Kids are still out of school.
Kids are still out of school. Why? Kids here aren't out of school. Kids in Florida aren't out of school. But why are kids in California being made to suffer? Why are kids in New York being made to suffer?
So their teachers don't die.
Teachers here aren't dying. Teachers in Florida aren't dying. Mom, that's not an argument.
Yeah.
Right? No, it's not.
Teachers aren't dying like books.
It is not an argument because teachers have been back to work. So teachers that teach in parochial schools don't get it. They've never been out. So they don't get it?
That's where I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Can't use that argument. You can't use the argument because if
Look up the teachers in Minnesota that have been back, and the death rate of the teachers in Minnesota who have been back.
I'm not going to believe anything that comes out of Minnesota. Mom, look at the states that are open. Look at the states that have been open. Look at the parochials never went out. They did mitigation, but they never put the kids at risk. All these students now, this generation, a little younger, it's going to be the dumbest generation.
Oh my
ever.
God.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's horrifying.
It's terrible.
They're not getting
I agree.
socialized.
At what
All because of the teachers don't want to go back to the classroom. That's heartbreaking because the teachers are the ones that need to be in the classroom. They're supposed to love their jobs. What happened to that? It's got to be harder to teach kids online than it is in person.
That was their only meal of the day. Those are only 2 meals of the day.
Exactly.
Right.
And they don't have a computer. And
They
if
don't
they're-
have a
And that
computer.
puts them at a disadvantage.
So they're at disadvantage to begin with.
Exactly.
And now you're really disadvantaged.
Took away their meals.
You want to
took away their
fix the inner city, you fix the education. That's how you do it. You give good education and support and jobs. That's how you do it. Okay? And putting people on government subsidy is not how you fix the problem. It's not. But I remember, Mom, the restaurants. You and Dad would talk about how people had to leave work to go home because the welfare people were coming to the house and they had to count the number of heads. You guys used to talk about that.
And I remember we used to talk about having to pay unemployment insurance.
Oh, yeah, but yeah.
No, for people who were trying to drive. Saying that they were fired or, whatever.
We do that. We have to do that. I get an unemployment claim at least once.
Oh, yeah. But these people were coming back. And
Right. They were filing a claim, but still working.
yeah.
Right. No, we don't get that. That we don't get.
I mean, it's just like,
We get people to quit and then file unemployment.
right.
See what they can get.
Right. Okay. No. They just. But if you want to read an interesting book,
It's not politically based.
I wouldn't say that. Okay, I would say there is some politics to it. Okay. However, you need to read it.
I just don't like how the whole thing's been made political. I don't think it
Oh,
needs
me too. I agree.
It's not
It's
about
ridiculously
that.
political.
It needs to just be about a disease that's killing it.
The states' rights thing is fine for most stuff, but it isn't fine for national issues. We're at war. States can't make a decision whether or not their guys can go. That's ridiculous. If we have a national emergency, the states can't decide whether they're going to participate in solving that emergency. No.
It's just a hot mess.
That's the whole point of the way our system is set up. Right? Our system is set up that way. Unfortunately,
States' rights is good. It's good for most stuff. Thank you.